there's one. Hello, buddy. Thanks for chowing down for me. Chill. Well, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back to Tyler's Real Fishing. I'm so excited that you guys are here to join us on another fishing adventure. And so if you're not subscribed to this channel, I make it my goal to help you guys become better bass anglers. So hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below to let me know that you guys are excited, and let's jump into it. So when it comes to fish that are eating bait fish, I have made a bunch of videos on this, and I've made a few this fall already, but I wanted to sit down and make one specifically on my favorite, more finessey sort of shad imitation lure, and that is the soft plastic jerkbait, or the Fluke. Now, as with a ton of my lures that I talk about, I like to use the Kleenex brand name, so I'm gonna call this a Fluke. Is this a Fluke? No, it's a Strike King caffeine shad. It's not a Zoom Super Fluke, but Zoom created the mold, the general idea of a soft plastic jerkbait, or maybe they didn't. Maybe the Sluggo was the first one, I don't know. But Zoom made it popular, so I'm gonna call it a Fluke, just like I'm gonna call it a chatterbait or a spook. That's what I call them. You guys know that I'm sponsored by Strike King, and so I will have all the Strike King products that I use and believe in the description below for you guys to check out. And so what makes the Fluke so special, especially when it comes to targeting fish that are eating bait fish in the fall, is that it falls into a category of its own, and that it can be very, very successful in clear water and in super calm water, where a lot of other lures, especially moving baits like a chatterbait, a spinnerbait, and a crankbait, just have a little bit too much action. Now, where is the Fluke meant for? As you heard me mention a second ago, I think it is mostly meant for 95% of the time I'm throwing this thing in clear water. I'm talking anywhere from 2-foot visibility to infinity, but of course as soon as you get more than 10-foot visibility, it gets to ultra clear, and that's when I drop down and throw maybe a smaller Fluke, but on a drop shot or on a jig head itself, tiny little swim baits. That's what I throw in that super clear water. So I'm talking anywhere from, I don't know, 2 to 8-foot visibility is where I'm throwing the Fluke most often. The next place that I find it very effective is going to be in calmer water. And so when you have a ripple on the top of the water, or you have wind, or you have current, it's just going to be harder for the fish to find this lure, especially once your visibility starts dropping, because it doesn't really impart a whole lot of action. It doesn't push water, it doesn't vibrate, it doesn't chatter, it does not have any rattles inside of it. It is just a simple lure that kind of darts through the water, and so that's where the calm water comes into play, because bass, at least in clear water, are using their eyes to sense what bait is around them to feed on. And so if it's not calm outside, I would highly recommend not throwing this thing. I would recommend throwing more of a spinnerbait or a squarebill crankbait than I would the Fluke. But when it comes to calm water, this thing is king. And the third place that I found this to be most effective is going to be in shallow water. Of course, I have it rigged up here on I believe it's an 1/8 ounce or a 1/4 ounce. I could look at the package here, but belly weight. This is definitely for a little bit deeper water. I'm throwing this today in about, I don't know, 8 to 20 feet of water. That's where I'm catching fish on this, but most of the time I'm going to throw it weightless, and I'm going to throw it in less than 4 to 5 feet of water. Any deeper, it would take a whole lot of patience to let this thing sink all the way down, because of course, like all soft plastics, you want to get this thing as close to the bottom as you can, and you're popping it off, as you'll see here in a second when I talk about how to work it. Now, when it comes to how to rig the soft plastic Fluke, there's 2 ways. There's a standard Texas rig, and there is a belly-weighted Texas rig, usually with a screw lock hook. And so here I have like I said, I think it's a 3 or a 4/8 ounce weighted hook. And so I'm going to take the Fluke, I'm going to take the screw lock, I'm going to make sure to get it nice and even on the nose, and I'm just going to screw this thing right on there as slow as or as fast as I can, but still keeping it, of course, nice and centered in there. You want your screw lock to screw directly into it without being at an angle. I'm going to screw it exactly until, I'll kind of show a B-roll shot here, until the little ring that holds the screw onto the eye of the hook is perpendicular. What's the angle I'm looking for here? I guess it's sitting perpendicular to how the shank of the hook goes. That way it sits perfectly in there and doesn't have any sort of torque one way or the other. And then I'm going to rig it just like a Texas rig. I'm going to drop it down in the slot. I'm going to poke it through, and then I'm going to put the hook, Texpose it what's called, right back in the bait, and right there you have yourself a weedless Texas rigged Fluke. Now, before we get up and talk about how to retrieve this thing and, of course, see plenty more fish catches on this, I need to talk about the gear that you need for this. Just like any other Texas rig, you can throw basically whatever you want, but I found that when it comes to throwing a weightless soft plastic fluke and kind of being more accurate with it, I'm going to throw a 6'8" or 7-foot medium or medium heavy rod, usually verging on the medium, because I don't absolutely set the hook hard on this thing given the business. I'm more kind of reel in my slack and kind of lean into them and make sure I keep pressure up the whole fight. That's the way that I found best to get the hook into those fish's mouth. And usually the fluke kind of slides right into their mouth nice and easy. Doesn't really take a whole lot of effort to get the hook into their mouth and to keep them pinned. But when it comes to the belly weighted hook on the fluke, I like to jump up to a 7'2" medium or medium heavy, depending on my line size. So in open water, I'm throwing 12-pound fluorocarbon, and if I'm throwing it around docks, marinas, shallow bushes, something like that, I'm throwing 15 or 17-pound fluorocarbon. Two other ways that I rig the fluke throughout the year that I don't necessarily use as much as the weighted or weightless Texas rig is going to be the Carolina rig or the drop shot and Demiki rig. And so I'll probably make some videos on that as we get farther into fall and winter, as those fish get a little more offshore, because they're pushing back into the pockets right now to feed up shallow on bait fish, which is why I'm throwing it on a belly weighted hook. But when they start moving out for the winter again, I'll show you guys how I use the fluke on a Carolina rig and dropping it straight down the boat on a drop shot and a Demiki rig. So that is enough talk. I say we hop on the front deck and I'll show you guys how I cast and retrieve this thing and catch some dang fish on it. So when it comes to working these soft plastic fluke, there's a whole lot of different ways to work it. Even more than reaction baits, I think a soft plastic fluke, especially belly weighted, has a lot of potential for working it different ways. So let me reel in and I'll show you guys kind of the two main ways that I like to work it, and they both impart what I call a twitch. Just like you're twitching a hard jerkbait, this is literally a jerkbait as well, but it is just a soft plastic version meant to imitate minnows or bluegill. So gonna cast it out there. Usually let it sink to the bottom in most cases, unless those fish are suspended or you're over such deep water that the fish are not on the bottom, like 100 feet deep. It's gonna take you a while to get the bait down there. But I'm gonna start at a fish. Oh my goodness. There was one sitting in the channel. That's not a bad one. That right there showed you the power of the belly weight, because with a weightless fluke, I would not have been able to get down to where that fish was. It would have taken me 10, 15, 20 seconds to sink that deep. With that belly weight, I was able to catch this fish. So let me show you guys. I'll make a shorter cast here so I don't catch one. I cast it out there, and then unlike every other Texas rig, I am not pulling the bait off the bottom and letting it sink down. Technically, I may be taking it off the bottom and working it in some way, but it is never just a simple lift and sink like a Cinco or a brush hog, something like that are. Every single time I'm working this bait, I'm either twitching it up to get that nose of that soft plastic fluke kind of, shimmying up like it's struggling to survive, and then it falls back down on that belly weight, or my rod tip is down and I'm twitching like this, just like the way that you work a hard jerkbait. So I cast out there, gonna give it 2 or 3 little twitches, let it sink, 2 or 3 more twitches. I work it just like I do a weightless fluke, but of course it has that weight to get it a little bit deeper, which I feel like is an area that a lot of people don't focus on throwing this lure. If they're gonna fish in a deeper situation, they're probably gonna use a weightless Texas rig worm or a crankbait. I have found that if you have that patience to get that weighted fluke down to 15, 20 feet deep, you can catch some fish that are untouched, especially with this tactic right here. And that belly weight just makes that lure, like I talked about, sink and shimmy right down there, almost like a flutter spoon would. So I have my flutter spoon here. I feel like I've got a flutter spoon somewhere in this boat. I think I took it off, but it falls just like a flutter spoon does, where it doesn't sink nose first or tail first. It kind of just flutters down like this. Looks like an injured, wounded piece of bait fish. Although I guess now that I think about it, when you are, ripping a lure like this, you have a tendency when that fish eats it on the paws to then rip it out of its mouth. Sometimes though, when you go to rip on it, that fish will be there. That's when I reel really fast and set the hook. Or if I'm jerking like this and I jerk and feel that fish on there, from that jerk, I will then set the hook up. So instead of spending time to jerk, pause, and then set the hook, oh, is that a fish? No way. I had a fish on. because if that fish feels the lure trying to escape, they'll either clench down harder or they'll just let go and you'll lose that fish. So you're lucky with a hard jerk bait like this one here because you have treble hooks. So if you're jerking down and then you jerk and the fish is there, you have that jerk to get the treble hook into the fish. Usually this Texas rig hook is not sharp enough and it's a little bit too thick wire to get in from a soft jerk like this. So if you do jerk and you feel the fish, as quickly as you can, either reel in or just use an upward hook set to take in that slack and set the hook. So that is all that I got for you guys about working the Fluke. Let's show you guys a few more fish catches. It doesn't matter who they're, oh gosh. There's one on the Fluke. Gee, chased it out of nowhere. Chunky dunky doo. And that fish there, as y'all can see, was not coming off. Got him right there in the corner of the eye socket almost. Beautiful. Oh, there's one. Gosh, that thing ran at me so fast. You, my friend, have some energy. Oh, chill, 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 chill. Is that how you grab them in MLF? Bacons.
You just kind of know there's not a natural flow.
Yeah, I know. There we go. There we go. On the Fluke. Oh, yes. Good one. As the little grass flat we were fishing around got deeper, I was able to cast the weighted Fluke around. Okay, come on, get out of the grass. Out of the grass. Out of the grass. Thank you. I love that noise.
I know.
Whee! All right. Nice chunky fish right there. So y'all can see on Fluke. Beautiful. That's a nice one right there. That's a chunky fish. Amazing. Thank you, buddy. And really the only two things in the scenario that could work effectively are maybe a light chatterbait and a Fluke like this. And I think when these fish are a little bit more finicky, don't want to chase as much, that's where you pull this baby out. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, hit that subscribe button. Share this video with somebody you think might enjoy it and might learn something from it. If you have any other video suggestions for me, leave them in the comment section below. Fall is finally getting full swing here in Texas, and I'm excited to get out there a few times a week and make videos for you guys. So that's all we got. We'll see y'all next time on TRF.